It just goes to show how excited people are about AI in general and how hot it is. So yeah, without further, I'm the CEO at Peak. So yeah, it's actually quite an exciting and proud moment for us as a business to be putting this on. It's our first public event. We've never done anything outside the UK actually, let alone outside of our own four walls. So thanks for selling the event out. Thanks for coming along and supporting us. With us we've got the awesome Global Radio. So Matt's going to be talking from Global, Europe's biggest radio broadcaster, for those who don't know. Steve from Social Chain, the world's leading social media marketing company, so loads of interesting stuff there. And also Kris from Amazon, from AWS, who've kindly helped sponsor and put on the event. So yeah, without further ado, let's get going. Why are we here? We're here to talk about AI in retail and media in particular. So just to give you a bit of context, let's talk about why we think it's an important topic and an interesting one. We've done a bit of research ourselves at Peak, so we've been going a short while now, a few years, and we think we've grown to become sort of, I guess, at the forefront of AI and machine learning adoption in several sectors, but particularly retail and media. So we did a bit of research on the impact we think AI is having in the sector in general, and we were, I guess, blown away to find a few really interesting stats that I thought you guys might be interested in. Firstly, those companies that are adopting AI, those retailers who are doing so, are growing 30% faster than the rest, which I think is an amazing stat and just shows the power that AI can have. A few other statistics for you, things we're a data company, so they're growing 30% faster than the rest. Their profit margins are 50% bigger, and amazingly they're doing that with 9% on average fewer inventories or stock holding. So that just shows you they're more capital efficient, they're growing faster, and they're able to produce higher margins, so the return on capital is even bigger. So if you're a retailer using AI, you're happy, and really what Peak's here to do is to help every retailer, every media company, and all businesses be able to adopt artificial intelligence in their business. So a lot of people kind of say, well, okay, that all sounds great, but like, what does it actually mean? So a good example that you'll all be familiar with, and one that's quite relevant, and sort of Matt will expand on a little bit when we talk about global, is how artificial intelligence is really, really good at making recommendations and understanding what people want. And Netflix is a brilliant example of this. So they attribute 75% of all the content that is consumed on the Netflix service to their artificial intelligence-driven recommendation system, which is pretty state-of-the-art. So that's an amazing stat there. And I think a couple of interesting stories from our customer base, just to kind of highlight the impact and the power that we think data and machine learning can have on business performance. First of all, you guys might not have heard of some of these companies, seeing as them are quite famous UK brands. But the first one there on the left, a company called Regit. They're actually the UK's biggest automotive services company. So they've got something like 2.8 million registered users. And this example is a fantastic one that highlights the predictive power of AI. So for anyone who knows anything about algorithms, which I'm sure a lot of you do, they're very, very good at predicting things from past data. And what these guys are using the Peak system to do is to predict which of those 2.8 million users are in the market for a new car at a given time, and we're able to predict that very accurately. And what they're then able to do is to focus their sales effort and their marketing communications on those that are in market at any given time. And the results for those guys have been fantastic. So their sales have gone up a staggering 27%. But also what we've been able to do is to show them the time of day that those people are most likely to pick up the phone and be receptive to those communications. So at the same time as increasing their sales, they've been able to do that with 35% lower operating costs, which is amazing. So there's one good example of how a simple application of AI can have a transformative impact on a company. The second one is a company called Morrison's. They're actually the UK's third biggest supermarket, so that's quite big. And those guys are highlighting here what I think is a really, really interesting use case for AI. So if AI can help you predict what your customers want and when, that tells you that you can also predict the aggregate demand for your products and services. So if you can do that, then you can optimize the inventory and the stock holding that your business has. And these guys have been able to forecast demand and then optimize the products and the allocation across stores. And they're saving themselves something like $15 million. I converted it into dollars for you using today's exchange rate. So $15 million a year, which is a great return. And then the last one, which I think is I had to put 10 times because 1,000% didn't fit on the slide. Is what I think is almost the cutting edge of artificial intelligence in retail. It's the concept that using AI and algorithms, you can have a one-to-one conversation with your customers. So if you think about what marketing really is, marketing is a surrogate for having a one-to-one communication with somebody. If you are trying to sell them a product or some of your services, then the best way you're going to do that is to have a one-to-one conversation with somebody. But as a brand or a retailer, you can't do that. So you blanket advertise, and over the years that's become more and more and more sophisticated. But now to the point, actually that AI can know what your customers want and when, in theory, and therefore you can communicate to them and you can personalise every single communication, the time they receive it, the content of that communication, what products you're showing them. And with that concept, in theory, your sales should go up. So Foot Asylum are a very large UK retailer. They're sort of similar to Foot Locker, I would say, here in the US, so sportswear, high street fashion retailer. And they've been able to increase the sales that they're getting from their marketing campaigns by 10 times. So it's an average of 1,000% uplift on the revenue they generated for every email marketing campaign they're sending, which is quite unbelievable, actually. And I think Steve's going to talk to us a little bit about all things sort of social media and the things they're doing with AI. So here's a good example where I'd say our worlds overlap and intersect. This is a really interesting example from Foot Asylum, who are doing something which I think is really, really cool. So if you think about social, it's very, very good at helping brands get share of mind. So you can advertise to a broad base of customers. You can use some quite sophisticated tools on Facebook and Instagram to target groups of customers. And you can stay, if you've got the money to do it, you can stay at the forefront of a huge group of people's minds. But what you're not doing is you're not actually able to get them when they're ready to buy, and you're not necessarily knowing what they want to buy. So if you can overlap both the power of social and the power of AI, you can identify groups of people who are interested in buying a particular product at a particular point in time, or at least have a much higher propensity to do so. So in this example, working with this company, we've been able to help them reduce their cost of acquisition through social by 74%, but also quadruple the number of impressions they're getting and quadruple the number of visits they're getting to their site through their paid social feeds. So that's a really good example of how you can take traditional marketing capabilities from the social platforms and overlay it with algorithmic capability to amplify the performance of your marketing. Okay. All right. So you guys might be interested in how we actually do this kind of stuff. We won't go into too much detail. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask away at the end of this presentation. But Peak, think about Peak as a company that does three things. We give our customers the technology they need to do all those things that I just talked about in the form of our AI system. So we believe we built the world's first dedicated AI system for business, and it's a product that's dedicated to streaming and making sense of data and then helping you deploy algorithms and then passing the output of those algorithms into your wider business systems and driving AI automation effectively across the enterprise. So we give you that technology. We give you a team of people who run it as a managed service and help you deploy that. So we effectively give our customers the data scientists and the engineers they need to be successful, and then we help them the third step, which is integrated into the workflow and the business processes in order to drive a return from that data. Okay. We don't have to dwell too much on this unless you've got some technically minded people in the room, but this is almost a simplification of the Peak AI system, and what it's showing you is exactly what I said. you stream data into Peak, the AI system makes sense of that data, and it helps you deploy algorithmic solutions on top, and then you suck the data back into your other business systems, and it drives that automation. So it's really the Peak system and our teams that are getting our customers the kind of returns that I've highlighted there, and a few sort of interesting examples. So that's a little bit about Peak and why we think AI is so powerful and transformative for businesses. And I think it's probably best to hand over to a couple of sort of experts in actually pulling these things off. So first of all, Matt from Global will talk you through what they do.
Hello everybody. Okay, is that about right?
Yeah. I wanted to go because I wanted to go.
That's me. As you can read, I work for a company called Global. I'm the analytics director. And the first question probably is, who is Global? It's a very valid question. We're mainly based in the UK and Europe. We're starting to make inroads into the US through one of our products we're going to talk about, but we're really famous for owning radio and festival fans. So if you're in the UK, you will probably hear one of our stations. They're called things like Capital and Classic and Heart, and they play. I think you would have some similar stations over here, ranging from sort of hot, new pop music all the way through to sort of easy listening, those sort of things. We reach 31 million adults, which I guess is probably a small number for the US, but in the UK that's about half the adult population every week. So if you want to do some audio advertising, generally come towards Global. We also launched DAX, which is our digital audio exchange. That's basically enables advertisers to buy targeted digital audio ads. So if you want to buy a fashionista, if you are a retailer or looking to buy people interested in clothes, you can come to us, we'll put it into the system. We will then serve that ad to either people listening to our brands or competitor brands or streaming services like SoundCloud, Deezer, the sort of big marketplace for audio advertising. That's who we are. When I joined the radio industry, there just wasn't any data. You couldn't really do much with data because there was nothing to use. Measurement was through surveys. So if you wanted to know how many listeners you have, you'd run a survey to find out how many people were listening to your station, which is obviously incredibly inaccurate in lots of ways. It's very expensive and it's very time consuming. And generally you lose all the granularity you need to make good decisions. And so of course in that world, myths propagate. You can make up a rule and say that nobody can disprove you. So things like presenter links, when a presenter talks about a song and that's coming up after the news, nobody knows if that really works or not, because nobody can ever measure that in the old days anyway. So you get all these sort of urban legends that start to become believed as being facts. I moved into the industry at a point in time where people started to listen to the radio and streaming services on these sort of devices. And of course, that throws up a whole load of data. A lot of it big, messy, unstructured. A lot of it actually contradicting what the other sources say. And it's at that point that I joined the business and decided to talk to the Peak guys about helping me out. And I felt slightly guilty about throwing them such a big problem, but they're working through it, as you shall see. Oh yeah, I'll put this one in because it's sort of, it's interesting for me. I'm a bit of a geek, but I really wanted to show you the growth in listening to radio through devices like Alexa. And this is just Alexa, so there's no numbers on here. We're a private business, I can't share too many. You can see over time what happened when Christmas arrived. Everybody got their Alexas out of the box. The first thing they did is ask it to play a radio station. And then those people carried on listening, and over time that market has continued to grow for us. It's a really big market for now, and advertising on Alexa devices is something that clients are really struggling with, so it's great that radio provides a solution for that. Of course, radio is very simple, really. We've only got three things we can really do. We can change the presenter, we can change what they're talking about, we have to carry ads, not a lot of agency there to change that, and then we can play different songs. So it's quite simple. The goal is quite simple as well, so really we just want to get people listening for longer, because that means we can serve more ads, which get more revenue. So it's quite But conceptually, it's quite a simple model. Of course, the issue is that the data's all over the place, and actually, the only data we've really got that's any use is when people started listening to the stream and when they stopped listening. There's no depth to it as such. It's just masses of server data of started listening, ended listening. And so what you have to start to do is start to figure out, well, did they turn off because of something we did, or actually were they just turning off because they were going out to work, or they'd finished doing the ironing, or whatever it was that they were doing when they were listening to that radio station. So the first challenge for the Peak guys really was to figure out, where are these moments where we can get people to listen for longer? What are the key points in the day where actually playing a different song would help? And this is it's really hard to talk about machine learning because the outcome is often just a dashboard, or it's not even a dashboard if it's done really well, it's just an engine that recommends to play different songs. It's very hard to show you that in an exciting way, but really, after ingesting all the data and then applying machine learning, what we ended up with was a dashboard that the guys could look down and see which songs were causing people to stay longer or switch off. And so we thought that's good. Playlisters can go in and do that, but actually you miss a lot of the complexity in the model by trying to oversimplify it, because you can't just play the top 20 songs off that list